Thank you, Charlie. And I believe it's buenas tardes rather than buenos dias, correct? Another Anglo-Saxon, so I don't speak Spanish or Portuguese, so I apologize for that. I had a dream last night. I had a dream that about the World Cup. I had a dream that England won the World Cup by beating Spain in the quarterfinals, Portugal in the semi-finals, and Brazil in the final, won the World Cup. Sadly, that's not the case, so I'm sure we'll go out. Thank you for that. I'm sure we'll go out in the quarterfinals on penalties to Portugal. So here I am. I've been asked to present a procurement view of media. Now, the one thing I have to say before I start is I love media. Ever since a very early family holiday to Washington, D.C., where I was playing with the clicker remote control. Some of you aren't old enough to remember a clicker remote control. And I put in my school project when I came back that Washington, D.C. had 25 TV channels. And it was absolutely fantastic to have that amount of choice. And when I first joined McCann's back in 1990, there was one commercial TV station, one radio station per area, 2 outdoor formats, a national press, a highly developed national press. But my point is that choice is good. We like choice, and procurement people like choice probably more than many others. So if you're expecting me to be the kind of procurement bogeyman, the kind of barbarian not only at the gate, but the barbarian kind of roaming your offices, then you're going to be disappointed. I think that procurement's had pretty bad press. I don't know many of the procurement people who do marketing. I've heard various horror stories, not quite sure where the truth lies. But there's always somebody else to blame. Procurement, 10 years ago it was consultants. And I think the point I want to try and make, certainly for media agencies, is there something you can do together, possibly together, to get people to reassess the value that media agencies bring. Nobody can argue that the innovation in media is fantastic at the moment. Looking at the Avatar presentation yesterday and the links between technology companies and media companies, and looking at what Cisco are doing, I was really impressed by that. So media in of itself is very innovative. I'm actually going to ask you to be procurement people for about 2 minutes. So have a think about that, consider it from a procurement point of view. And as you may have noticed, I am a human being, unlike the reputation we sometimes have. So personally, I have worked in media for far too long, 20 years now, not to recognize the fantastic power it has to build brands. And I think the depth and speed of change at the moment is also fantastic as well. But I think I want to try and separate the two issues. What's the true value of media, i.e. all forms of communication, and what's the true value of media agencies, the intermediaries that we use, most advertisers use to plan and buy media, both bought and owned. So, moving swiftly on. Some of you will recognize the Johnny Walker campaign here, one of our global priority brands. So we as a company believe in the power of media and communications to build our brands, as we inform consumers about our brands and try and build share in marketplaces. Media is the single largest discretionary spend we have in our A&P, and we spend more on media than we do on glass bottles. So that shows just how much we care. We take media management seriously. I lead a team of 10 people around the world, Latin America, Africa, Asia Pac, GB Ireland, Spain, Greece, and the US, to try and manage our media in a way which I think is the best for us to get the most effective and efficient media plans for our brands. I sit on the marketing leadership team. Some of you may know Andy Fennell, our CMO. I sit on his leadership team. So we have a very aligned procurement and marketing point of view to get the best out of our finite A&P. So I want to give an answer to the question, what is the true value of media? So I'm going to give one answer, which is the cost of media is effectively a reflection of the perceived value of media. And if clients are prepared to pay for it, then that is the definition of value of media for me. So I think it's enormously valuable, but there's some other parts in the equation I want to come to. We also firmly believe that the individuals we employ who plan and buy our campaigns are extremely valuable to us as a business. And we do not think that that expert service is a commodity. But what I would argue, and will argue in a bit, is part of that agency business model, which hasn't changed in the 20 years since I first joined on February the 1st, 1990, back in Howland Street, underneath the post office tower. The business is the same business as it once was. And I would argue that it's time now to look at that business and see whether parts of that can be changed for the better not only for the media, for the clients, but also the media owners as well. So people aren't a commodity, but I think parts of the service could be commoditized. So here's a couple of examples of the type of things that we do. I try and see communications in a holistic fashion. I don't just look at media agencies on their own in some silo. Most of the marketeers that we have, I'm sure that most of the marketeers you know will see advertising agencies, design agencies, BTL agencies, media agencies, other agencies, and we'll form a comparison of the levels of service and the levels of expertise across those. So I think it's really important that media agencies look across the various service providers and benchmark themselves against those. Now, procurement professionals should really take the time to understand the market they're in. Stationery, glass, hops, sorghum, whatever it may be. You need to do this professionally. And most procurement people I know, certainly in our company who've come into media, recognize that it's changed enormously. It's not about limited inventory and focused on the best price. It's a lot more complicated. We need to plan it in such a way that we do it holistically with POS, with experiential, and all the other potential vehicles you can have for consumer connection. I think Martin said that very eloquently yesterday. But procurement professionals, by their very nature and training, do tend to have the rather good habit of questioning things. They always try and seek the best deal, which I'm not ashamed of, which is not just cost-focused. It's about quality. I think, again, Martin had 3 areas. He had transparency of results, he had the most effective plans, and the lowest cost. And I think I'm completely aligned with that because that's just sensible. It's an intelligent way of looking at it. It would be remiss of me if I didn't mention the fact that inflation is not a good thing for my business. And where we can get a better deal, we will get a better deal. And certainly since September 2008, in some marketplaces, we have got as much out of the marketplaces as we possibly can to ensure that we don't have to spend any more money to get the patterns of exposure that we require. And I think that's perfectly reasonable. It also should be said that the recession hasn't been global. If you're in China or India, you have less growth, but it's still inflationary. So I want to move on to being a bit of a procurement person. So let me move this chart. I want to give you an insight on what procurement people do when they look at their categories. So procurement people look at this 4-box chart. Along the x-axis, you have business impact, increasing business impact, how important it is. And on the y-axis, you have risk or market difficulty. So how difficult would that be to change your supplier to move things in a new area? And you've got bottleneck, where you've probably got one supplier and nothing else, no other supplier can do it. Across to strategic, because it has big business impact and it's difficult to change that supplier. Leverage and an open marketplace. So the kind of stationary buying or print buying. And savings increase as you go from top left across to the top right, then down to the bottom left. So I'm going to ask the technology people up here to help me. I'm going to ask you to use your keypads, and I'm going to ask you 2 questions. The first question is, based upon my description of this chart, where would you place media generally? Not media agencies, but media on this chart. Would they be a bottleneck, strategic, leverage, or acquisition? So. Strategic, indeed. Bottleneck, interesting. Acquisition, 12% of you think it could be an acquisition. That's very interesting. Most of my supply colleagues, people who buy raw materials, would probably put it in acquisition as well. I think it's somewhere in between. I think parts of it are very much strategic, and parts of it could be leverage. And if you have a certain approach to it and you can commoditize your media, you could make it acquisition and basically pitch out your campaigns all the time, which, enabled by technology, could be possible and is possible. So, second question. In which one of the quadrants would media agencies sit? Interesting. So media is more strategic than media agencies. And therein lies, I think, a bit of an issue. So thank you for that. I shall be approaching you all for a job later on. Moving on, another quick chart. Thank you very much. So this is the kind of, again, a second approach that we look at. So we have prerequisites for our suppliers within Diageo, and I'm sure other companies are exactly the same. Assurance of supply, does the stuff turn up? Do campaigns get bought? Quality, these are all prerequisites, and service. The differentiators are cost, can you do the same thing more cheaply, faster, better, and innovation, which is the faster, better thing. So I think that the important thing to say here is something I've touched on already. Which part of the media agency service has really changed in the past 20 or 30 years? How have they really innovated? Has the media agency really embraced technology in the way that the media industry has? Has it looked at its business model really closely to look at things like technology, offshoring, outsourcing, data management, tax optimization, etc.? So there are a number of ways that consultants and other companies will look at the media agency model. The most important thing is, has it really grasped the opportunity to demonstrate it can deliver incremental value? Or does it focus on what it feels confident doing, which is buying stuff and making sure campaigns happen? And as somebody who worked at a media agency for 7 years, as part of the communications industry, media agencies aren't very good at communicating their value. And my challenge to them today is for them to communicate their value far better than they do. So here's something from Diageo, again, a little bit of a education on procurement. Here's what we stand for as a procurement organisation. We stand for assuring, protecting and creating value for our company. And we do that by a number of different things. You can read those there. The one I wanted to focus on is kind of just on the right there. Build key relationships for value. It's really important for us that the people who work for us are massively motivated for us. Now, our brands don't just compete against Martin's brands and other companies' brands. They compete against all other advertisers for their better than fair share of the best people in media agencies and the best media available. So building key relationships of value for us is enormously important for us to get what we want for our brands, to get those effective plans, and then buy them at the lowest cost. And I believe that good relationships built over years on the basis of trust are far more productive, generally, than going to pitch. Pitching is an uncertain endeavour. You need to be very, very careful that you can judge the results of a pitch when you come to that pitch. What we want to do as Diageo is create the conditions for people to succeed, both internally and externally. So let me move on and emphasise that a bit. I think the future health of the media agency industry is its ability to grasp the opportunity and clearly and compellingly explain its contribution. If you think about some of the trade bodies like the IAB or Thinkbox in the UK, which is where I live, or the RAB in the US and the UK in the past, they've really galvanised their industries to deliver and demonstrate the value in a compelling way, and good business results have come from that. That hasn't happened with media agencies. Is there a way that agencies can work together to talk about and talk about the value they add, rather than come into a share fight, which means that they diminish the value and fundamentally get themselves into an acquisition category? I think the two key things for me really on this one is understanding. Do clients really understand the total value they obtain from the media agency? And the second is kind of linked to that but slightly different. How can media agencies better communicate to their clients that they are working in their best interests? I said I work with design agencies, I work with advertising agencies, and it's my belief that they are usually far better salespeople and far more convincing in terms of their ability to persuade their clients that they have the best interests at stake, and also are really interested in their clients' brands as brands with a shared agenda. So I think trust and candour is enormously important, and we work very hard to ensure that we get that. So let me move on to the final chart, which is a lovely Bailey's bow. Hopefully you all bought one of these for Christmas. They're coming back again at Christmas as well. This is about success. I think success in agencies is their ability to be able to come together and talk to their clients compellingly about how they can deliver value. I'm not so naive that there's some utopia around the corner, but I think unless something changes, then media agencies will certainly be in the leverage category, if not the acquisition category by some point in the future. And I think that's fundamentally wrong for the people who work in the industry, and more importantly, the value that companies like mine can gather from the expertise that is available but may not be utilised in the right way. So that's the procurement view of media. Thank you.